Before we get into modeling our Gothic structure, I wanted to go over a couple of modeling tips because I think it's important that every map painter is a good modeler, and oftentimes the difference between a good and bad modeler is that it's just a couple of tips here and there that make modeling a lot easier in Maya. So you may be familiar with these tips and you may not. But if you're able to just pick up a couple new things, it would be worth it to watch this little segment of this training video. So if we just start out with a cube here, and let's turn on the shading. If I am, by default, when I bring in a cube, it brings in the pivot point at the center. I often will move the pivot point so that it's easier to use. And in order to do that, if you press the Insert key, this will give you the ability to move the pivot point wherever you want. But you don't really want to move it arbitrarily somewhere. You want it to be exact. So if you press the V key, V as in Victor, then you see that this changes. Two things change on your screen. This changes to let you know that you are now going to snap it to the points, but then also this icon up here depresses. And so if you press this V key, you can snap it into the bottom corner, press Insert again, and now you have the ability to scale it from the bottom corner, which I think makes a lot more sense. Especially when you're doing architectural things, buildings and such. So I'll often create one of these and then I will just duplicate these across and keep using the same basic cube instead of recreating the same cube over and over again and then moving the pivot point. The next thing that you can do with the snap to points is that you can, between objects, you can snap one object onto another object. And if you'd like, if you just grab one of these handles, which is the XYZ axis, it will just move it in one axis for you. So you can see this point and this point are now aligned perfectly. And I use this all the time in modeling. So if I press V, it will snap there, or if I press V here, it will snap to these different points. You can also use the snap to point on different elements of the polygon, like vertices. So if I go to vertices here, just move some of these in bizarre places, then what I can do, if I needed to move all these back to this point again, then I just press V and snap it. If I press V, grab that, and then move my cursor over to the one that I want, then it will snap it to that same plane. I use that quite often. So also what you can do, if these are all in different places and you want all these vertices to be on the same plane, you can select them all and then just go to the scale tool and just scale them into place, and they will move along the same axis, which I use that all the time as well. Let me just trash these and pull up a couple other primitives here. I do not ever use these two primitives, the sphere and the cylinder. I don't ever use these because if you look at how they're built, all these edges going into one vertice. It's kind of like bad modeling, I think. So to achieve these two shapes without doing that, what I will do is I will start, everything that I model starts with a cube. And if you look at the smooth mesh preview just by pressing the number 3, this is how I achieve a sphere. So if you wanted to actually, let's take this off the smooth preview, and you wanted to smooth this guy, you could, I don't know, let's do it on 2 or something. This will give you your sphere. And then you look at the difference of those, is that all these edges go into one vertice, and this is a lot better shape. Or if you want to create a cylinder, what you can do is go up here, create another edge like this, and then check out the smooth preview, and that's how you get your cylinder, which is much better than this thing and a lot easier to model. So let's take it off of that and then just smooth it. You can see that it's not putting all these points into one spot. And you can control how hard these edges are by how close you place them. Or if you're going to be modeling with the preview, then you can crease the edges, which we'll go into a little bit later. But basically what I'm saying is, if you need to use these, don't use those, these primitives. Start everything with a cube, and it'll be much easier to model than using these two shapes. I often like to model using the smooth mesh preview, and this is something new that came out in Maya a couple of versions back, and it gives you the ability to preview your polygons smoothed. And if you select on any polygon and press the number 2, it will give you a preview of what that object looks like when it's smoothed. And if you press 2, it'll also give you this little preview of what the polygon actually looks like. And so it gives you a display of both at the same time. If you press 3, that'll disappear. So 1, 2, and 3, that you can go back seamlessly. And you can model this way. So if I extrude the face there, then I can model the whole thing this way. So it also gives you the ability to make hard lines or crease edges. So in order to do that, let's go over here to edges. Say we want to make, this is kind of round right here, but we want to crease this edge. So let's select those guys. Press Shift and right click, go down to Crease Tool, and if you middle mouse drag, it will bring this in and out of a crease. So now you have a smooth mesh preview, but you also have nice hard creases, and you can do them with varying degrees. So you saw that I could smooth it, I could do it to a degree, or I could make it really hard. And then if you're done modeling and you like the way it looks in the smooth mesh preview, all you need to do is go to Modify, Convert Smooth Mesh Preview to Polygons, and now that is just a normal polygon, and it looks exactly like your smooth mesh preview. So, and that's quite nice if you need to turn it back into a polygon. But in order to render, if you're rendering with Mental Ray, you don't need to convert it to a polygon. Mental Ray will render the smooth mesh preview the way it looks in the smooth mesh preview and not the actual polygon. So that's one benefit of using the Mental Ray renderer for that. The last thing that I'm going to be talking about is Maya's gestures. And gestures in Maya have been around for a really long time, and I'm surprised to see that there's not a lot of people that use it, and it is actually really great. You've seen these different menu sets being popped up, and that's while I've been working. So if you right click, it will give you a menu set right here, which will allow you to pick different parts of your polygon, have that be edge, vertex, face, UV, or whatever. So if I just right click and I go up to edge, I can select the edge, different edges of my polygon. Go to face, do face. But this is the gesture part of it, is that I don't need to, let's put this in object mode, I don't need to wait for the menu to pop up. So you can see that this is, the menu is face down here, is straight down. So if I just right click and I do it fast, I don't need to wait for that menu to pop up. I can just select it. So if I want to go to edge now, I just go edge, and now it selects the edges. Back to face. So that's really fast for modeling. That's vertex going to the right. You can get a little more complex with this if you press the shift and right click. It will give you another menu set, and as you can see, you can go into different menu sets. So if I right click, shift and right click, these ones with the little arrows are brings you into another level of menu. So if I press Control, this is another menu, and then if you press spacebar, of course, without clicking, this will give you all of this menu up here. So really, you could make all this stuff, turn all of this stuff off, and you can access the whole menu from here, which is quite nice. So let's go back to pressing Control and right click. Something that I use quite often is these edge ring utilities. You can see there on the bottom left. So if I go to this and I go to edge split, edge ring and split, I use that quite often. So that will split, put a loop around the object. So if I go to edge here, select that, and then I press Control, I can go down into that menu and it'll do that for me. But let's say, because it's the gesture system, what I can do is I can do the gesture and I don't need to wait for the menus to pop up. So I just press Control. Did you see that? Like that. So that again, I'm going down like this. I'm just doing that same gesture, but I'm doing it fast. Oops, and sometimes you mess up, but most of the time it's pretty good. And then actually, once you've done an action like that, if I just select this edge and press the G key, G as in George, if I press that G key, it will do whatever the last command that I did. So I don't need to actually keep doing those gestures if I want to put in a bunch of edge loops. All I need to do is just press the G key. So that's really it. I've exhausted all of my interesting tips and tricks on modeling, and like I said, I think every matte painter should be a really good modeler. And the difference is a lot of these little tips and tricks that you can pick up from people. So if you're working around people that are modelers, it's a good idea to ask them questions, how they model things, and if you're wanting more in-depth training about how to model in Maya, I'd look at some of the other titles that that Gnomon has to offer on modeling, and that'll give you a really in-depth idea. And that going in depth on modeling more than what we've already done is a little bit beyond the scope of this DVD, so I would refer you to some of those other resources. But even if you did pick up just 1 or 2 tips, then it'll be worth it to watch this this segment of the video, even though it's kind of going over some of the basics. So thanks for your patience, and I hope that was beneficial.